The title of my talk this morning is Discover Your DNA. I'd like to begin by sharing some very important facts about DNA, also known as deoxyribonucleic or ribonucleic acid. Perhaps if you know more about it, you can finally figure out who you are. Forget all those self-help spiritual books. The DNA is truly where it's at. Scientists at Cambridge University believe humans have DNA in common with, are you ready for this? The mudworm. In fact, relatively speaking, it is the closest genetic invertebrate to us. I know, who would have thought? So genetically, we have more in common with the mudworm than a spider, octopus, or cockroach, which to me was a big relief. We also have 98% of DNA in common with chimpanzee, which kind of explains some friends of mine. And it's also it's a distinct fact that 40 to 50% of our DNA is in common with a cabbage. So adopting those Cabbage Patch Kids in the 70s maybe wasn't such a bad idea. The very makeup of our physical DNA is so expansive, abundant, and intricate. That's just mind-boggling. In fact, if you could type 60 words per minute, 8 hours a day, for approximately 50 years, that's how long it would take to type up the human genome, also known as our complete nucleic acid chromosome set. I don't know who would volunteer for that study, but it is just overwhelming to think how lengthy it is. In fact, if you could also put the DNA molecules in your body end to end, don't try this at home, it would go from, the DNA would reach from the Earth to the sun and back over 600 times. Well, I've decided that since deoxyribonucleic acid is really hard to pronounce, and it explains some things, but not all things, I'm just going to rename it. The scientists will adapt. So are you ready to take a look at DNA in a different way? I want you to now think of it as divine, natural abundance. I have just detailed how prolific DNA is, and so this name really fits a lot better. We often live in this truly poverty consciousness. We play small and oftentimes feel unworthy. But we're really prosperous beings at our very core. In addition to our DNA, scan your body for a moment. Think about how many cells you have. There are trillions. And they're also being reproduced every 7 years. So basically, we have new bodies every 7 years, which is a really cool thing to think about. Nature herself is prosperous. Has anybody recently looked up at the night sky out of the light of Chico and seen how many billions of planets are up there? I mean, you can't even see them all with your naked eye. And what's even more amazing is that the universe is constantly expanding out into a sea of apparent nothingness, all from an initial explosion of energy. That's prosperity. Now think about all the leaves on the trees, drops of water in an ocean. There are infinite blades of grass, grains of sand on the beach. You can go on and on. I'm mentioning this to fully integrate that our inherent state is one of natural abundance. So why do we have often struggles with trying to make it through financially the month, or for some people even the day? Last month, I went up to Seattle and attended the Ministers' Conference, and the main theme was prosperity. It was amazing how we had so many issues come up about our old beliefs about money that still affected us today. We had to examine how we really felt and what could be blocking us from letting this greater abundance flow. I grew up rather poor, but I didn't realize it till I went off to school. Anybody else relate to that? In fact, kids teased me about my tattered clothes and my pants that were too short. In fact, I kind of thought that I invented the capri pant look. But I wasn't fashionable. And my well-intentioned hand-me-downs from my older yet shorter sisters. The teasing about my clothes was painful. In fact, we rarely went to restaurants, and when we traveled, we mostly camped out. But at a very deep level, I felt so happy in my childhood. And I felt rich on many, many levels. I remember my father putting down wealthy people in a way that made me feel almost superior, like we had things their money could never buy. It did leave me, however, with the belief that money was somehow bad, and that people who tried to attain it, that perhaps it could ruin their lives. In fact, I kind of felt like, oh, those poor people. They had too much money. Just for a moment, I want you to think about your early views around money. What were you taught? What were some issues? Like, when I hold up this Andrew Jackson here, does it bring feelings up of fear? Does it bring feelings up of joy, greed, anxiety at all? Who's feeling abundant? I need a volunteer. Come on up. Okay, Michael. You feel abundant, yes? Okay, it is yours. And it all starts with that feeling. Because you
car insurance.
You do have to feel it in order to accept it, which we'll talk more about in a moment. But there were other things around money too. What were you told about money? Anybody here? Money's the root of all evil? It doesn't grow on trees. What else? Yes.
Easier for the rich man to, what is it, a camel to go through a needle's eye than a rich man go to heaven?
Yes. I think the whole camel thing. I know, that really played with my mind for a while. That was weird. What other comments or
Have to work hard. Yeah.
You have to work hard if you're going to have money. No, that's not true. We know way too many rich people who sit around a lot. So, yes.
There's never enough.
There's never enough. So sometimes we really need to fully examine this negative BS, belief systems, about money, if we're going to let them go. So we often get haunted by ancient teachings. Perhaps you had spiritual teachers in the past that were very strict or stern about money. And we still, excuse me a second, it's not fully cooperating, we're kind of haunted. It's kind of like having a spiritual leader on your shoulder beating you up. For having desires about money. It was almost like you were considered unholy or unworthy to actually want something on a material level. When we operate from a belief system of poverty, that poverty is perhaps virtuous and money is bad, we cut ourselves off from our divine inheritance. One amazing thing about DNA, however, is that it's fragile. It can be molded, which means we're not stuck with a genetic code that is stuck in poverty or supports a limited consciousness. Scientists have discovered, it's so cool, all the new things we're discovering about brain science, that our neural pathways can actually be altered. They're not set for life that they once felt that they were. Many people are confused about what prosperity means, though. I'm sure you could ask all your friends and they'd come up with different definitions. According to satirist Ashley Brilliant, she said, prosperity means buying things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. You can come up with your own definition, but one that we kind of all agreed on at the ministers' conference was prosperity means free to live the life we choose. Think about that. Free to live the life we choose. What kind of life are you choosing to live? Money can be the greatest excuse for not being free. Have you ever told people that, oh, I can't afford to do that, or I'll never have my dream come about because I can't afford to. Can't take that risk. Money has also been described as God in action, or an exchange of energy. About 5 years ago, I decided to follow a 30-year dream that I had of traveling around the world by myself for 7 months. I didn't have the money to do it, but I had such a strong, vivid dream that I knew I was going to make it happen. And as a result, circumstances and people and situations sprang up from sources that I could not even imagine to help support me in making that happen. So one way of discovering our divine natural abundance, or D.N.A, and then accepting it, is to adopt a belief system to make it possible, whatever that might be for you. But this teaching dictates that we must create a mold or a mental equivalent to allow our dreams to flourish. You might wonder, how can I create wealth when I look at my world and I don't see anything in front of me? This is where we need to not get stuck in the perspective of outer conditions. We need to identify with this source of all that is, the source that makes planets, the source that expands the universe. It's not limited. It's not until we change the projector of our beliefs, the projector up here, that we can begin to see outer conditions change. We're seeing today's conditions based on yesterday's beliefs. So I want to ask you, what do you want to see in your life for tomorrow? In the book, which I'm also doing the class on, The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker, he states in his chapter, Decide to Live Richly. You can live a much better, fuller life right where you are, in your present circumstances. It does not require more money, a better job, a nicer home, or a different marriage partner. Many of you can feel very relieved. It requires a change of consciousness, and this you can do, for you are a thinker. You are a controller of your consciousness. The moment you decide to live a richer life, your consciousness will devise the ways and means of your having it. Consciousness contains total intelligence because consciousness is the action of infinite mind thinking. Your consciousness is the individualization of the total consciousness of being. That's a huge relief to me to know that we are connected to this total consciousness of being. We don't have to do it on our own. It will demonstrate for you a richer life when you are certain you want it and you have decided to have it. There is power in decision. And there's also power in appreciation. By recognizing simple things around us, we can begin to think and feel more abundantly. That feeling that attracts money into your life. Feeling is the key here. For you can't just say, oh, mouth the words, oh, I'm so abundant, I'm so prosperous, but then feel that poor, unworthy quality within. So to help with this, remember the qualities of nature that exist all around us, and also do an inventory on your daily blessings. We often take these for granted. I know for myself I do, and I have to stop and really think, wait a moment, look at how rich I already am. I assume that most of you slept in a bed last night. I assume that most of you, when you turned on the faucet, even though we're in California, running water came out. We're going to know that that's going to change. And I also assume that when you flipped the light switch, that light flooded the room. The natural laws of circulation and attraction prove that what you focus on, you get more of. So begin by going through your day, appreciating the little things, whatever you can, to kind of prime the pump with those simple things that are easy to notice. So many times we run through our days kind of espousing and pointing out all that is wrong. And we want to tell our friends or anyone who will bother to listen what we don't like. Then we often add emotional conviction to it if we're trying to be right about an argument. And then we actually indirectly attract more negative events to our life because of it. Stop this. Just let it go. Thoughts are not only things, they create things. When you go to a restaurant, do you look at the menu, then when the waitress comes by, you tell her all the things you don't want to order? Do you say something like, I don't want that liver, and whatever you do, don't get those bell peppers near my plate? No. You tell her what you want. Now, unlike the waitress who might just walk away thinking you're crazy, the universe will pick up on whatever you're giving that negative or positive energy to and bring you more of it. Where energy goes, or where focus goes, energy flows. Appreciation, not condemnation, opens the channels for your good to truly flow into your life. You can also make a list of all the gifts you've been given this past year. And I've had to be a little creative and sometimes look for the ones that aren't obvious first, at first glance. For instance, back in January, my tax man kind of messed up on my taxes, just slightly, but when I pointed it out to him, he waived the $260 fee that he normally charged. That was a $260 gift. I was also told recently by a woman who had a car that was broken down and wasn't running. Well, she went out one day because she was frustrated. She didn't have the money to fix it. She went out one morning and the car had been stolen. Well, the police found it a few miles away, and not only had they replaced the battery and got it to work, but they left a lot of loot in there that was really expensive, and the police said that she could keep it. You cannot tell the universe how to deliver. You can't make this stuff up. Think about other gifts that allow us to feel abundant. It's important to feel the best thought that comes to you around this. In fact, if you were born in America, that's a gift in itself because so many people are dying to get into this country. And so many people are dying just to try and stay here. Many gifts that aren't attached to material objects can often be the truly greatest gifts. I often do meditations where I fully thank my 5 senses. Think about it. Your sight has given you sunrises and sunsets, beautiful flowers. What else? What else have you been blessed with your vision?
Smiles.
Smiles, yes. How about hearing? Hearing Beethoven, flutes, a baby's laughter. Any other things?
Birds.
What?
Birds.
Birds, oh yes. Great joy. The sense of smell. I love gardenias and cinnamon rolls. And I'm still looking for a plant that grows both of them. What about your sense of touch? Holding a hand? A what?
Caress.
Caress. Yes, I was thinking of little kittens. Petting, yes. Animals are one of our greatest sources of reward when we touch them. Your taste buds. I love chocolate, obviously not bell peppers, freshly picked peaches, tomatoes. We have so much wonderful things to be blessed with our senses right now. Our DNA can also be seen not just in obtaining abundance, but in our ability to give. By giving, we often show the universe that there is more than enough abundance to share. It's that law of circulation. What I'd like you to do real quickly is just to take a deep breath in if you can. Breathe in, hold it. Okay, keep on holding it. Keep on holding it. I don't have to because I have to talk. Keep on holding it. And as long as you can hold it, and then when you can't hold it any longer, let go. This is a simple example of the give and take of the universe. In order to make room for more good or oxygen to enter, you must sometimes let go of what you're holding on to. We can't hoard our good and expect more to flow into our life. When I was in the Peace Corps years ago, they had a practice that really impressed me. When food was at its very scarcest, when the supply ship hadn't come in months, that became the most important time to give. In fact, one night I heard a little knock on my door, and there was this little Marshallese lady who was standing there when I opened it, and she was extending to me a cup of flour. She had heard that I had run out of mine about a week before, but this was her last one. The Marshallese understood that through powerful trust in their God, they could freely give when supplies were diminished. This trust allowed that good to flow into them because the ship always came a short time later. Think for a moment of all the times that you've given and how happy it's made you feel. Once again, when we give, we send that message to the universe that we have more than enough, and that law of attraction brings it to you. You cannot outgive the universe. For a workshop a few years ago, I had to go and give something away. So I went to Trader Joe's and bought 24 roses. And I stood out in front of that store for about 2 hours trying to give them away because people were really suspicious and they thought there was a string attached to that rose. Also, during the Thursday night markets, those who've helped me out with those, we've noticed that when we give away the little packets of seeds with free positive thoughts, some people wonder what those positive thoughts are going to cost them. And we need to take a look at our abilities of both giving and receiving. It's a spiritual practice on both levels. Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. He was truly a genius because he recognized the power of visualization. And just for a moment now, I'd like to do a little process with you. So if you could, just please close your eyes for a moment. Don't worry, I'm not going to come around and grab your wallets. And I want you to just imagine that if money were no object and you had unlimited funds, what would you be doing or what would you be having? Think about how you would feel. Allow that joy to fully sink in. Take a deep breath and just relax into that knowing that that good is already present in your life. Think about the happy skips you would be making and who you would be hugging and sharing this experience with. Who or what might you be giving back to? What is one small step you can do or think today that will align with your dream? Okay, you can open your eyes now. And know that one step that you can always take is begin to trust the universe. Trust this abundant universe that says yes, that's truly here to support us on a multitude of levels. There is power in visualization. And trust that guidance you get from Spirit. And lighten up on yourself. Don't worry if you don't get it right the first time and you make a few mistakes along the way. In fact, if you're not making mistakes on a daily basis, you're just not trying hard enough, I think. Don't specify exactly how your good has to come. Because once again, you have a very creative universe. Sometimes images convey far more than just words can. And so what I'd like you to do for the next 5 minutes is sit back and enjoy this little video that I got from YouTube on paying it forward. Could you dim the lights too, please, Sean?
Over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to, oh why can't I? Well, I see trees of green and red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue and I see clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. See friends shaking hands, say, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dream
as you might have noticed from the video, our DNA is based in loving kindness and abundance. We have the ability and we want to give and receive. We want to go out and make a difference in the world. So I encourage you to go pay it forward, pass it on, whether it be in joy or actions, or whatever you can do. Thank you so much for being here, and namaste.